Alright, good morning guys. Today we are going to be talking about the nervous system. And the nervous system is not the system that makes you nervous. It is the system that controls our thoughts, us being able to remember things. It controls our muscles being able to move. It controls everything going on in our body. All of our other organs are controlled by the central nervous system, right? So let's start by talking about what the purpose of the nervous system is, right? We want to put our purpose way up here. And the job or the function of the nervous system is to control the activities in the body. It is the boss of the body. It controls every little part of what's going on, right? From our breathing to our heart rate to telling us when we feel cold or hot. Our nervous system controls all of that. So if you printed your notes, we're going to be color coding a little bit. So we're going to start with a green. We're going to color code all of our central nervous system in green and our peripheral nervous system in purple. So let's start with talking about the central nervous system. The central nervous system is the center of the nervous system, right? It is the midpoint. It's what holds everything together. And it includes the brain and the spinal cord. And the brain right here and the spinal cord, which goes down inside your vertebrae, together they regulate or control all the activities that are going on in your body, right? That's their job, that's their function, is to control everything that's happening. So we're going to kind of just shade our little box green to help us remember that the central nervous system has a couple of parts, and we're going to actually use green on our brain and spinal cord section on this page as well. So when we zip over here to talk about the brain, let's start with knowing that the brain is the what? It's the control center, right? It's the boss, right? It's the control center of the nervous system. It's where everything is processed and stored. And there are three main parts that helps us do that. There is the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the medulla. Now those that sound like some very fancy science words. Miss Young, what is going on? I don't know what all of those words mean. Well, let's break it down. The cerebrum is the largest part. It is what you think of when you think of the brain. It's all of that wrinkly area, right? And it controls voluntary. And voluntary remembers that we do it on our own, that we think it and it happens, right? Voluntary movements. So things like riding, scratching your back, right? Running across a football field. Those are voluntary movements, and those are controlled by the cerebrum. The senses are also controlled here. Senses, remember, are things like seeing, feeling, touching, and so all of the sensory information is processed in our cerebrum. And our cerebrum is divided, as you guys probably already know, into two halves, and we call these two halves hemispheres. Right, so that's our cerebrum. So if we come over here, our cerebrum is this area right here. So all of this wrinkly part, right? Our cerebrum is the part that controls voluntary muscle movement, muscle movements that we control, like me filling out these doodle notes right now. And it controls the processing of our senses. Right, takes in all that information and turns it into information that we can use. because our sensory organs, like our eyes and our nose, they don't process information. They just send messages to our brain. And so our cerebrum breaks that down into information that we can use. Now, the cerebellum is towards the back of the head, right? It's towards the base. When you look at brain diagrams and you see the part that kind of sticks out on the bottom, that's the cerebellum, right? And it gives feedback for your body, positioning based on the information that it gets from your sensory organs. So it takes in information from our senses and it helps you adjust your body. So if you're sitting in your desk at home and you feel a little uncomfortable and you shift positions, that's your cerebellum, right? It controls a lot of our balancing movements, being able to walk and ride a bike and balance when you're walking on a skinny rail. That's your cerebellum. It gives a lot of information about where you are. Remember, one of our senses is our ears, and that helps us to feel balanced. When people have a condition called vertigo, their ears aren't sending information to their brain correctly, so they have a hard time balancing. So the cerebellum is the part of our brain that's responsible for controlling that. Now, the last part of our brain we're going to talk about is our medulla. And the medulla controls the spinal cord. It's actually kind of at the base of the spinal cord. It's kind of towards the top of the spinal cord. And it also controls a lot of involuntary activities. Now, involuntary activities are activities that we don't have to think about. We don't think about our heart beating, right? We don't have to think to ourselves, heart beat, right? It just happens. It just does it because of our medulla, because of our medulla is part of our brainstem, and our brainstem controls most of our involuntary activities. So if we look up here in our diagram, our cerebellum is this part that's kind of sticking out down here. It's kind of this lump on the base of the back of our brain. And then right here, I'm going to use a different shade of green. Our medulla is this base, and it's actually connected to our spinal cord. There's not really like a separator of any kind. It's just a larger portion, and it's part of our brainstem. So we're going to kind of shade it in green as well. Okay, so we've got our cerebrum, our cerebellum, and our medulla, right? And those three things all help our brain to function together. So I'm going to shade this block green. If you're color coding with me, you can shade yours green too. So we remember that this information actually goes with our central nervous system, right? Because this is a part of our central nervous system, our processor for our central nervous system. Okay. Now we also have another part of our central nervous system, our spinal cord. And our spinal cord is essential. If we get damage to our spinal cord, then we start to lose feeling, movement, right? It's what carries those messages or sometimes we call them signals, back and forth between your brain and your body, because your spinal cord is connected to all of these nerves that run all over the rest of your body. And so if we can't connect these nerves to our brain, it's kind of like a roadblock, right? It's kind of like a stopper. It's not going to let any information flow, right? It conducts sensory information. That's information that's coming into our brain to help our brain know about what's going on in our surroundings. Sensory information can be how hot or cold a room is, right? How sticky or wet something might feel. This is all information that your body is taking in from the peripheral nervous system. We call it conducting information because your brain processes electrical signals. Believe it or not, you are electrifying, and all of the messages or signals are conducted along these peripheral nerves till they get to your spinal cord, and then they're taken to your brain where your brain can interpret it. So these are all electrical signals. That's why we use kind of words like conduct. We think of electricity being conducted. So this information is conducted or transferred from the brain to various muscle groups, right, to help you move your body or adjust your position, to help you run or ride your bike or play golf, right? And it also controls the glands in your body. Now, we haven't really gotten to talk a lot about glands, but glands are super important because they produce hormones, and hormones control just about everything in your body, right? They are little chemical messengers that help your body adjust to things. And guess what controls that? Your nervous system. So we're going to also label our spinal cord box because it is a part of our central nervous system. It is the connection between our central nervous system and our peripheral nervous system, which we're going to talk about in just a second. Right? I'm going to shade my box. Okay. And then we're going to fill in our spinal cord. So we have a connection between our brain and the rest of our body. It's that superhighway of information and electrical signals. Okay? So we've got our spinal cord, we've got our brain, and those are both part of our central nervous system, right? Now remember, I said that big word, peripheral nervous system. Whew. Miss Young throwing lots of fancy science words at us today. So for our peripheral nervous system, we're going to switch to purple, okay? And the peripheral nervous system, if you see this word part, peri, if you've ever heard the word perimeter, right? Perimeter means the distance around a shape, right? And this is the same idea. This word part means around. So these are all around the body. These are the nerves that are not central, not in the middle, right? But they're on the outside edges, all around your body, okay? So our peripheral nervous system includes all of our nerves that are outside of the central nervous system, and we're just going to abbreviate that, CNS, central nervous system, okay? When we see CNS, we're going to think central nervous system. When we see PNS, we're going to think peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system connects the central nervous system, remember, to all of those parts, the muscles, organs, your skin, all of the things that are happening in your body are connected to your central nervous system by all of these peripheral nerves, okay? They help coordinate movement and behavior, because our brain not only controls the things that we do, but it also controls how we feel, right? And our brain is processing that information that's taken in through our peripheral nervous system to help us adjust our movements and behaviors, okay? The peripheral nervous system can really be broken down into two main parts. The first part is the autonomic nervous system, and this regulates things we can't control, involuntary actions. Involuntary actions are things that we can't control, like breathing, digestion. Right? Now we also have another part of the peripheral nervous system, the somatic. And the somatic nervous system controls voluntary actions and our reflexes. And reflexes are really cool. Reflexes are what allow your body to take action before your brain really even processes the information. For example, when you touch the hot stove, you pull your hand away very quickly, or a hot pan, before you really even have time to think, oh, that's hot, right? And that's a reflex. That's something happening so quickly that our body's protecting itself without really thinking through it. Now remember, we've also talked about voluntary and involuntary control and action in our brain. But remember, our brain is only in our head, right? Our brain doesn't have tissue in our fingers or toes or rib cage, right? And so the brain is sending and receiving messages through this peripheral nervous system, right? And so this peripheral nervous system is very important because it not only receives information from our brain, but it also sends information to our brain. So we're going to add that here. Sends and receives. Okay? Sends and receives information. All right, so we're going to go through and we're going to shade our little body all purple, because not only are those peripheral nerves those large nerves that we see, but they are everywhere. They're all over your skin. They are all over your scalp. They are connected to your lungs. They're connected to your heart. Everything in your body is connected to your brain through these peripheral nerves. Right? We even have these nerves in our face. They would allow you to make a facial expression. Oh, the lights went out. Let's see. Oh, I gotta find the light. There we go. I'm back. So your peripheral nerves in your face are what control your facial movements and your ability to speak and all of the things that we just naturally do and take for granted most of the time. We are only able to do those things because of our peripheral nervous system. The nerves that connect our body to our brain, right? It's the connection between the two systems. And remember, this peripheral nervous system sends and receives information. Well, how does it send and receive this information? I'm going to switch to a blue for my last section, which are nerves. Nerves are made of specialized cells called neurons, right? Neurons are nerve cells. They carry messages from one part of the body to another using, remember we just talked about this over here, what kind of signals? Electrical signals. So believe it or not, electricity is flowing through you right now to help transfer information from your peripheral nervous system to your brain, and then from your brain back to your peripheral nervous system. So nerves are vital. They are so important for being able to transfer information. They're what allow the information to move from one spot to another. Some of you guys used neurons for your cell in your levels of organization poster, and you saw that they are kind of crazy shaped, right? They've kind of got this star-shaped body, and then they've got this long section, and this long section is what allows that transfer. It's like an electrical cord, right? Information comes into the cell, it travels down this axon, and then it meets up with another neuron at the end, and it's transferred through that space because they don't actually touch each other. That space is called a synapse, and that synapse is where neurotransmitters come in, and they're chemical messengers that take that message from one neuron to the next neuron so that they can keep being passed through your body. So we're going to use, sorry, that shadow from the light. We're going to use blue to just show that we have some neurons running everywhere, all over our body. We're going to add in some of those really tiny neurons that are running all over. All right? So I hope that that helped you guys understand a little bit more about how the peripheral nervous system works, right? It's all working together, connected to the central nervous system to control all the activities in the body. It sends information to the brain, receives information so that we can process and change based on our environment and our surroundings. I hope you guys have a great day.